So if you are somebody like me who is struggling to improve their chess ELO rating, then I think you have found the right video. So here is little background for me. I have been stuck at around 700 ELO for a few months, and my goal was to increase my rating to at least 1000 on chess.com. So I'm talking about a rapid game, so like 10 and 15-minute game, because I don't like playing Blitz, and Bullet is totally out of my league. So in the last few months, I have come to an important realization. And the realization is that you need to learn some opening theory. You cannot just wing it. It's fine when you are low rated, like when I started, when I was at 300, 400, 500, 600, even 650, I could just use common sense and play in the opening and things would work out. But then later what I started noticing was that when I played an e4 opening, which is the king's pawn opening, and that is the opening that I have always used. That's how I learned chess. My philosophy was put the king's pawn in the center, develop your knight, develop your bishop, castle, and then just use your common sense. That strategy started backfiring on me. And what I noticed was that a lot of people at around 700, between 700 to 1000 ELO on chess, they have learned some, opening. They are familiar with maybe not everything, because e4 is a very it's like a Pandora's box. There are so many ways the game can go, so it's really not possible to remember everything unless you are like a professional chess player. But even at a lower level, if you have learned few of the lines, you can use it against your opponent and you can win games, and you can get a considerable material advantage or positional advantage. So that's what was happening to me. I was always getting in a bad position very early on, like within the first 10 moves I would either lose a pawn or a piece, or I would have a horrible position on the board, and then I would go on to lose the match. So when I saw this pattern, I was like, okay, I cannot just keep winging it. I need to go and learn some theory. So I started learning the e4 e5 opening. I familiarized myself with all the different openings that are there, whether it's like 4 knights game, your Italian Gyuko piano or whatever it is called, Rui Lopez, and I realized it's too much. There is no way I can remember the theory and learn everything. And that's when I was like, I think e4 e5 opening is not the way to go. That's the conclusion that I have come to. Now of course you can disagree with me. e4 e5 is a very popular opening, even Magnus plays it, but I have come to the realization that it's not the most optimal opening for somebody like me who is not interested in learning a lot of theory. So after watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos, God knows how many chess videos I've watched on YouTube, I have come to the realization that you are better off pushing the queen's pawn. So put the d pawn in the center, and then from there you can pursue either queen's gambit. The options are less. It's not like e4 where there are bazillion options. Here you don't need to learn a whole lot of theory. You can just learn queen's gambit, or you can learn few other similar d4 opening, and you will be better off. So I have been using this, and to my surprise, I have actually started seeing good results. Now this is if you are white. What about if you are black? So even as a black, I was losing a lot of games because I would respond with e5 for an e4 opening, and I would lose the game because I had no understanding of the theory, and my opponent would either win material or just fuck my position, like my pawn structure would get messed up or something would go wrong. So that's when I stumbled across a bunch of videos about Karo Kann defense. I was kind of skeptical because in Karo Kann defense, you develop your queen side and you don't touch your king side. You don't develop your king side knight and bishop, and you don't castle early. So that felt like a mistake to me because I always thought you should quickly castle so that your king is protected and then focus on other things. Karo Kann defense does not do that. You develop the queen side first, you lock the center, and your king side development and subsequent castling happens little later. So initially I dismissed this opening thinking this is not going to work for me. But at my rating, I have noticed that Karo Kann defense is a much better opening if you are black. So here is the game. I have exported it in a local program. This is called e4-e5. By the way, this is a fantastic program. It's completely free. It integrates with Stockfish, so you can run the analysis. As you see here, you can even get a report for your game. You will even get this chess.com style, where it will tell you brilliant moves and all that. And this is completely free. Chess.com obviously charges you money. Now, of course, you can export your game from chess.com, go to Lichess and do the same thing. But I prefer to do it locally on my computer because I have a pretty powerful desktop machine. So if I can run locally, that's the best thing. So let's start. So my opponent did the e4 opening. Now, normally I would have responded by e5, and then I always used to get in trouble when I did this. So this time around, instead, I went with Karo Kann. So with Karo Kann, the best part is you can employ Karo Kann, which is c6 followed by d5. You can use this even if your opponent does not do e5 opening. So what I mean by that is, if your opponent plays say d4, so if your opponent is trying to do a queen's gambit, for example, they are starting with this. So suppose they put it here, d4, you can still say c6, and after that maybe your opponent does this, and now you can hit back, and we transpose back into a Karo Kann defense, which is the standard Karo Kann pattern here. So regardless of whether the your opponent is pushing this pawn first or whether they are pushing this pawn first, you can always force your opponent to play Karo Kann. And I love this because this allows me to not learn multiple responses as black. I can always use Karo Kann regardless of what my opponent is doing. I can always force Karo Kann defense. So my opponent played e4. I responded with c6. And then he got his bishop out. So this gets a tomato. Not really a tomato, it's an orange, but I don't think it's a bad move, not at my level. And so I responded back with this. So this is the Karo Kann. The guy took my pawn, I took it back. And so at this point I have the center. I have control of this guy, I have control of this guy, and this guy has no control in the center, right? If you look at he's controlling this diagonal, but my pawn is still protected by my queen, so I'm in a pretty good spot. So already I think I have made a good start. So I now move my second pawn and I capture the center. So this blue line will be the recommendation from Stockfish. So Stockfish wanted me to develop my juicer, or it wanted me to develop my knight, but anyway I decided to go with my just capture the center. That was my idea. My opponent is still not trying to get the center, so he meekly pushes d3, which is fine. Then I got my knight out, he got his knight out, and now at this point the engine wanted me to develop my bishop here, but now the engine is not playing Karo Kann, guys. Engine is just trying to find the best move for that situation. So this is what the engine is suggesting, but I felt I would be better off if I just kick his knight around. So I moved this. Again, the engine says this is probably a orange, not a very good move, but whatever, I did that. He comes here, I develop my second knight, and at this point he went for an exchange and I gladly took it. So I would say, if you look at the marker here, we are kind of balanced. It's slightly in favor of black, but not really. It's in the center. So then my opponent moved this, and my eyes lit up when he did this, because I know now from my past experience that if you move your if this pawn, which is your f pawn, so if you do f2 to f3, that's usually not a good sign. So see, the engine is suggesting put my queen here, give him a check. But at this point I thought if I do that, he will just move his pawn and block it, and I will have to bring my queen back. So I didn't see the merit in this, but seems like that would still be a good move. So if I put it here, he's going to block, and then the engine says just come back. So even though I don't gain anything, but if you look at the analytical bar here, now it's more in favor of black. And I think it's because white has fucked up his pawn structure here, right? If he plans to castle here, then these two pawns are little away from, they are in the third rank, and apparently that's not a good position for these pawns to be. I just went with my, I was like, hey, let's develop our juicer. So he gets his juicer out, I bring it back. I didn't want to, exchange it. And he gets his queen out. So far everything is looking fine. And I proceeded to castle. So this was 11th move. My rule of thumb is try to castle before 10th move. So that's what I did. Now my opponent decided to castle on the queen side, and Stockfish does put a question mark here. So apparently it's not a good move, and you can see the bar is now favoring, it's in favor of black. The engine is saying push your a pawn. Now I don't know why it's saying that. Maybe it wants to, for me to storm the castle here, start moving both these pawns. But I felt like right now I'm not ready. So instead I decided to develop my second juicer so that I have it pointing to this juicer. And if he exchanges, then my queen will come here, and this is like a defensive piece protecting the king, so if I can exchange, it's in my benefit. That was my thought process. Like, that's the thinking of a 650 yellow chess player. So I did that, and he took it. Now the engine says he should not have taken it, so I think I was onto something when I did that. And I actually get a exclamation mark, which is like a good move, although I don't think there is any. I just recaptured my bishop, so I don't know why it's saying this is a good move, but I guess the point is that it is attacking this pawn here and the king is in some pressure. So he moves his king here, and at this point the engine, if you notice here, the engine again wanted me to storm my pawns and start attacking, but instead I did this. And here my thought process was that if this guy captures my juicer, I will capture it back with my knight, and now I will have my knight sitting here attacking this pawn. The queen is already targeting that pawn, so that's a good position. If I can bring my queen here, that will force his king to go here, and then I can get my queen here, and I might get a checkmate. That was my thought process. So my opponent instead tries to push my juicer. I just go back. Stockfish doesn't like it. My bar kind of slightly drops, but I'm still winning according to the analytical engine here. Now my opponent tries to, I'm not sure what he's trying to do. He's trying to put pressure on this pawn. And now finally I'm like, okay, let's storm his castle. Let's start moving these pawns. My goal was to move both these pawns and basically break his castle apart. So my opponent takes the pawn, and I take it with my knight. So if you look here, the engine is now saying I have a minus 5.25. So that's a significant advantage at this point. Now my opponent, I guess, panicked. Not sure what happened, but he tried to attack my knight, forgetting that his queen is hanging. So I took his queen. And that was game over for my opponent. So from this point onward, my goal was to just advance these pawns and attack his castle. So I started doing that, as you can see here. And I got my queen here, putting more pressure. And once this opened up, then I thought it was going to be easy. Now at this point, there were a few tactics that I missed. So if you guys are still watching, can you figure out what the tactic is? There is a very quick way to actually checkmate. It's saying sack your rook, sacrifice it. So you come here, he will be forced to take it. And after he takes it, you come here. So you don't give a check. But now what happens is there is no way for black to prevent this rook from coming over here. And that's the, that's checkmate. So he might try to block it by coming here, which is fine. You take it. And after that, he might try to come here. Again, you take it. And now he's kind of screwed. He may do this, but now you bring it here. Boom, checkmate. Because this and this is already taken care of. And now the rook is doing this. So this would have been a quick checkmate. But I'm not that smart, guys. So that is not what I did. So instead of sacking my rook, I actually decided to play more conservative. I got my queen here, gave him a check. He moved out. Then I moved my pawn, gave him another check. He came here. And after that, there was some song and dance routine here. I was trying to marshal on my, pieces here. And then I realized that my queen was hung. Because at this point I can't come here and I obviously cannot go there. So in a way my queen is stuck. So I panicked. I was like, oh shit, did I just hang my queen? Then I found some counter move, which was basically to give him a check. And then he brought his bishop here, which I thought was a mistake. Because now this bishop is pinned. So this pawn is no longer protected. So I could have directly, captured the pawn with my queen. But again, my 650 yellow brain did not realize that. So instead, I took his bishop and he got my bishop. So that was an equal exchange. Then I got my second rook, forced his king to move out, and I was able to get out of, this rook's way. So I was able to save my queen. And from here, this was pretty simple. I just, I could have checkmated much earlier. It took a while, but eventually I got, him checkmated. But the main point that I want to make is that if you guys are, losing because you play e4, e5, so your opponent plays this and you always come up with this and you invariably end up losing or you are in a bad position, maybe it is a good idea to just ditch the e4, e5. So if your opponent does e4, you go with Karo Kann, regardless of what he does, whether he does this or in my case, my opponent did this. Whatever he does, you respond back with d5, and that way you lock the center which means this bishop coming here trying to attack your f pawn, you know, them bringing their queen, maybe trying to do a wayward queen attack, or some other stupidity like maybe they get their knight here, try to do fried liver attack. You can basically neutralize all those threats if you just play Caro-Kann defense, because you lock the center, you take care of this diagonal. And I have noticed, at least at this level 650 700 to below 1000, I have noticed that if you employ Caro-Kann defense, your opponent is lost. They usually have no idea what to do, because they probably have not faced Caro-Kann defense, or they are not familiar with the theory. And the good thing is Caro-Kann defense, because this is an old opening, there is a lot of free stuff on YouTube. Gotham Chess has few videos, and if you just type Caro-Kann defense, you will find so many videos on YouTube. You just need to watch those videos, do some practice, and you will have a very good idea of how to play Caro-Kann. So yeah, that's my strategy moving forward. Caro-Kann defense if I'm playing black, and queen's pawn opening if I'm playing white. So anyway guys, I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comment section below. Otherwise, I will see you in my next one. Bye.